Welcome to Better Bad Ideas. Today we had Hasan Piker on the podcast where we discussed politics, where we discussed mainstream media, we discussed Amazon, and many other subjects. For those of you who don't know Hasan Piker, you're not watching enough YouTube or Twitch. And today we find out who has a better bad idea. I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport.
We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. So I appreciate you doing this, my friend.
Of course.
I
I didn't listen. I did not know that you had a podcast.
didn't either.
You're coming into my territory now. This is
No, I appreciate it. You know, I obviously been following you, following your work. And where are you from?
I'm originally from Turkey. I grew up in Istanbul and Ankara, but then I came to America when I was 18 years old to go to college. And my parents wanted me to go to a good college. And I got like scholarships and stuff. I got a scholarship from George Washington University. And I think it was Boston University as well. And then my parents wanted me to go to one of those good schools. But then I ended up going to Miami.
You don't think BU is a good school?
No, they do think BU is a good school,
Right.
and I thought so as well. But I wanted to party a little bit, so I went to Miami, and they hated that, so they made me transfer to Rutgers, and that's where I graduated from.
So what was it like growing up in Turkey and then coming over here when you were 18?
I mean, I grew up with a lot of American TV and American movies and stuff that I watched. That's why I don't even have an accent. Like I grew up learning English by just like simply watching a lot of American television. So I always wanted to come here. I always wanted to go to college here. So it was like a dream come true.
Yeah, you know, I have a lot of friends from my neighborhood that can't speak English as well as you do. And maybe I should encourage them to start watching a little more TV.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of Americans even don't speak English that well anymore.
They don't.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, that could be helpful. It definitely was helpful for me, at least, because, you know, with a name like Hasan, if you don't also have a decent American accent, I feel like some people sometimes are like, you know, they're a little shifty about it.
So you wanted to come over to the States, go to college, get a great education. Did you ever think you'd be doing what you're doing for a living?
No, not really. I mean, I was a political science major. That's what I graduated with. I probably am one of the only people that, you know, took advantage of that degree and actually uses it and is not just like, I don't know, selling insurance or something. I never thought that I would be in the position that I'm in. I never thought that I would find so much success in doing what I'm doing. All of that is actually totally just, I think, random. It's luck. I mean, I worked hard, but I think luck definitely factored in.
Well, you clearly work hard. I mean, you are the #1 influencer on Twitch. You have a phenomenal following on YouTube. What drove you to have the political views that you have, or the platform that you possess on all these social media platforms?
I think, well, there's a couple different moments in my life. Number one, I came from a very affluent, well, not like super affluent, but like pretty affluent family for Turkey originally. And that's when I first encountered the concept of just people not having enough money, where my parents sent me to public school, and I don't even know why they did that originally, but I thought, you know, it was an interesting experience overall. But that's when I was like, damn, some of these kids that I'm going to school with, like, they just don't have access to nice shit. I don't know what that's about. So that was my first encounter with that. Then, you know, my father lost all of his money by the time I got to college. But, you know, boohoo, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I still got that important early start, you know? So, once I got to college, in the United States of America, I'm like super excited. I'm like, oh, greatest country on the planet. Like, and then I had to go to a hospital, and then I was like, oh shit, they just don't have free healthcare here. Like, this is crazy. Cause like, even in Turkey's a poor country, but they still have nationalized healthcare, and on top of that, you can get private stuff on the side if you want. So for me, that was definitely like a radicalizing moment where I was like, this is crazy. Like, you have to pay $5,000 to get on an ambulance. Like, what the hell is this?
And that's a struggle, you know, that I think people don't realize. You know, you coming from Turkey, where you wouldn't expect that there'd be free healthcare, right? And then you come to one of the richest nations in the world, and healthcare is outrageous, and the cost is passed on. So that was a defining moment, as you put it,
Yeah.
on one aspect of it. But when you graduated college, and you weren't certain what you were going to do, what was the first job that you had?
I worked with my uncle.
Jenk?
Yeah, exactly. So I had nowhere to go. I mean, I graduated with honors, but it didn't matter. It's a terrible job market. There's no applicable. I didn't have the network. Like, I didn't have any people that I knew that worked in any of these like big four consultant firms or whatever. Which is ironic now that I look at it. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I was like, oh, well, this is applicable. I'll become a consultant.
Right.
It's disgusting. The fact that
those are the people that you target, I think, on your audience.
100%.
And those are the people that, are causing a lot of these problems throughout this country. So that's quite a shift in attitude.
Yeah, it is wild. When I think about it now, I was like, damn, I wanted to go work for like PricewaterhouseCooper or like a McKinsey. And now I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Were you like taking gummies or smoking weed back then at all? Or what was up?
No, I think. Well, yeah, I guess for sure. But no, at that time it was just like I didn't have any sort of like serious principles. I was just thinking about it like I want to make money and this is prestigious. That's what I thought in my mind. But I started working with my uncle, and look, I think it might be a little Turkish of him to do this, but he definitely took advantage of the fact that I was his nephew in terms of, the pay structure that I worked under.
So you definitely needed a union with a relative.
Oh, 100%.
No doubt.
Exactly. They actually did unionize the producers, but that was after I had left. But there was definitely a little bit of issues there as well, and I think that was my third like final radicalizing moment. I guess was I had this IP, this intellectual property of the show that I like built out of for free that I did because I wanted to do it on the side. It's something I wanted, and I knew they were not gonna originally they were not gonna let me do it unless I do it for free, which is kind of lame.
And this is your uncle's company.
Yeah, it's my uncle's company. So I'm just like I want to help. I want to be beneficial, and I also want to do this thing. I'll just do it. I'll just do the extra work for free on the side and like maintain this thing so that I can prove that it's good. And so I did that. But it blew up. It got very popular. And instead of giving me additional funds to be like, here, let's build out the show more. Let's give you a writer, because I did this in the supply closet, basically. I put a green screen up there and I started filming myself. They were like, oh yeah, we're going to take this IP and we're going to give it to all the other hosts so we can like make more of the same type of videos without spending any extra money. And that's when I was like, damn, I have no ownership over this. Like, I have no control over my hours. I have no control over this IP, this thing that I created, right? Like this thing that I put a lot of thought and effort into, and I did for basically free. I don't control it.
It seems like you're describing the third-party leasing arrangement that Amazon is using right now.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue. You're a natural. You're a natural at this podcasting thing.
Right. We'll see. Count on you to make me look good, man.
All right. No, I will. I asked my friends that do a labor report, and they were shocked that you have podcasts. They didn't know that this was happening. Yeah. So this is going to be exciting.
Well, I think like you, we recognize that we do have a lot of influence. More importantly, we have a lot of opinions. And I think it's important to sometimes step out of our comfort zones and create a narrative that is inclusive, that can have differences of opinions, like you do as well. But it's important to have programs like this that are uninhibited, unscripted. And, I think, segueing into something else, I think the mainstream media, and this is an unqualified opinion because I deal with them all the time, is not as effective or influential. It's more like a totalitarian rule when they want to control the narrative. And whenever you have a difference of opinions or you want to have a narrative that they're not comfortable with, they blow it up. So in your opinion, being a social media influencer is one of the best, one of the most brightest, based on your background, where do you see mainstream media moving forward in this country?
I think you're nailing it. They're definitely cooked. They are losing their ratings. They have virtually nobody under the age of like 45 watching at this point. I mean, I look at those numbers, they're Nielsen TV metrics, and it's abysmal, especially post-election. I have a much larger audience than they do in these primary demographics, 18 to 35, and I'm just one guy who is filming from their living room, right? Like it's incomprehensible. If you were to ask me 10 years ago, like, you're going to have a larger audience than CNN in the 18 to 35 demographic, live streaming in your pajamas, I would laugh. I was like, that's insane. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. And I think part of that is, most of that is because of their own failures over and over again, routinely, I think, lying when there are moments where there needs to be a narrative that is cultivated.
There's a huge pandemic in mainstream media. It's called liabilities.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Right? That's one aspect of it for sure.
Right.
And I think everybody does it. I'll be the first to recognize, I think that like Fox News does it also with regular frequency. The problem is a lot of people don't consider Fox News to be lying in general. When they say mainstream media lies, they think like CNN, NBC. I think part of that is because they're supposed to be objective. Like they've supposedly presented themselves as the objective arbiters of truth, whereas Fox News is editorial. Everybody knows that, right? And I think they get away with a lot of that for that same reason. Even though, ironically enough, when push comes to shove, when they have to make coverage on a strike that's happening, for example, they will immediately hit the same exact button. It might be Fox News, it might be ABC, it might be NBC, it might be CNN. They'll immediately pit you against, obviously you know this better than anyone else, you against your rank and file striking union workers against other consumers, even though they themselves are workers as well, and they have the exact same interests in their own personal individual workplaces as the guys that are out there picketing. But they immediately divide it.
If you see some of the media we've done over the Amazon, even over a lot of other situations, our union under our leadership, which we've been in there for 1,004 days, we've had over 200 strikes, whether it's a direct strike or direct action. And it seems like mainstream media in our world, we're not embraced as doing something that's just and right for working people.
Yeah, I wonder why.
They focus on, the narrative of, they're hurting the consumer.
Yeah.
Or they're hurting the general public. No, we're helping the consumer. We're helping the general public. Do you see a shift from major media markets to what you're doing, what I'm attempting to do, and other people are doing, where we can capture that audience of 18 to 35-year-olds and influence them in a way where we are getting the stories out accurate, uninhibited, but with credibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you have most likely a much easier time getting your message across to Joe Rogan and his audience than you do going on I think CNN. You're going to have an infinitely more hostile interview. It's going to be much shorter. And also, you're not going to be talking to a labor reporter. You're going to be talking to a hostile entity that is, whether they acknowledge it or not, absolutely working at the behest of corporations. Why are they working at the behest of corporations? Because right after your 5-minute spot is done, where you just got across as many talking points as you possibly could, what happens? You go to an ad break and you got, big pharmaceutical corporations, you got Amazon, you got all of these companies that you normally are delivering for, and you're trying to make sure that you're protecting your drivers on. They're paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, to have these slots immediately after your interview. In that situation, of course, they're going to have a little bit more loyalty to those people.
So you look at what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And you've been very supportive of and critical of corporations, Amazon in particular. Now, Amazon owns Twitch, which is your largest platform.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So that's actually really interesting. I think Amazon wants to, just like every other sector, they want to monopolize. So they understand that Twitch is very important for live streaming. They see it as like the next step in the next medium that they want to be an important player in. So they bought Twitch for that reason. And Twitch is a very expensive company overall. Live web service is really like live streaming is very difficult to maintain, but Amazon owns AWS, so they don't mind hosting it because they already own all of the servers.
Do they mind the criticism that comes along with it?
I think, well, I play ball. I got a contract originally with Amazon because,
At least you did.
Yeah, well, but that's
We're trying like hell, man.
Exactly, but see, they would much rather have one rich guy be able to do a contract than have an actual contract with a labor union, right? Obviously, like it's a much more divided field, and for that reason, they don't have contracts anymore. For example, they no longer even have to offer them. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think they don't mind as long as I generate revenue for the company. And it's interesting because, I am very critical of Amazon. I've fundraised for the ALU originally. It's actually this shirt that I made. This is also union made. All my merchandise.
Yeah, I know you have a swag company.
Yeah,
that's 100% unionized, right?
Yeah.
So am I gonna have to use that company too now?
I mean, you probably do actually. The garment manufacturing side is Bayside. So there are, I think, one of the largest, not the largest, like unionized garment manufacturer in the United States.
So it's safe to say, just getting back to your point of Amazon making tons of money off of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Not being too concerned about the criticism thrown at them because, they're making money. And
they're making money, and I'm powerless at the end of the day. Like, that's the reality. We have, a 10% union participation rate in this country. Mm-hmm. That's lower than the country of Chile. We literally rewrote their constitution in a neoliberal fashion, and they still have a higher union participation than we do. They don't see us as a threat.
Right. But I think, like anything else, I'm confident that we continue on this path of being vigilant and capturing the audience of the 18 and 35 year olds, where we're looking at our demographics as well. I believe, are going to have the ability to organize Amazon because people are pretty fed up. People are fed up with how they're treated while they're working for Amazon. People are fed up on just Amazon's attitude, where they think that because they're a $2 trillion company, that they can control the narrative and destiny of working people. But what's more frightening to me is they think they can control the policy in the United States. They actually think they set policy, just like many other billionaires in this country. And I'd like to know your opinion on the influence that the Amazons of the world and other big billionaires have on the direction this country is going to be moving forward in.
I mean, it's terrifying, right? You got both Amazon and Starbucks, I think, actively trying to undermine the NLRB. And I think they're doing that deliberately. They want to take it up to the Supreme Court. They want to have that battle, and they want to undermine what remains of labor protection.
Right, but you know what's funny about Amazon? So they want to dismantle the NLRB, which, my day job, I deal with the NLRB. There is no doubt that reforms need to happen in the NLRB on both sides, right? But here's Amazon claiming they want a ruling saying that the NLRB is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And here we are fighting with them, with the ALU Teamsters Local 1, when now they're filing charges with the NLRB as a result of what we're doing nationwide with this strike and everything else. Now they're looking for the people they want to dismantle for a resolution currently, claiming that we're violating federal labor laws. So
yeah,
they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, right? What do they actually want? Do they just want extreme wealth and control and influence?
Yeah, of course. They just want to be able to continue accumulating capital, and the most malleable and also the most significant aspect of that process is our workers. So,
in your opinion, we fight this battle. In your opinion, what do the Amazon workers need to do to win this battle?
It's really difficult. It's really difficult, I think, but I would say, especially on the logistics side, distribution facilities are probably the closest to an assembly line. I feel like commodity production now, the way it's designed, is so white collar focused that it's very difficult to instill any sort of class consciousness, any sort of recognition that like you and the guy next to you have the exact same problems. So it's better that you know what everyone's salary is, right?
Well, that goes to credibility with like UPS, United Parcel Service,
Yeah.
or DHL. You go to work at UPS under a collective bargaining agreement, regardless of your age, race, color, religion, or creed, you are going to be paid and treated the same way as everybody else, regardless.
Yeah.
And in Amazon, that's not the case, right? When does Amazon, when do they finally get exposed publicly? And what do we need to do outside of, I mean, we're striking them and we're going to continue to strike them. We're going to continue to expose them. But what do we actually need to do to infiltrate them and make them act accordingly?
Honestly, I think is what you guys are doing right now, just slowly but surely chipping away at it, because overall, in the minds of Americans, they just only care about everything from the perspective as consumers. That's all they care about. Mm-hmm. So they don't care about how the sausage is made. They don't care about who's making the sausage. Mm-hmm. Ironically enough, they can't even identify an Amazon delivery driver, UPS driver, a Teamster guy, and their own goals in their own immediate workplace. They can't identify it with themselves, even though they have the exact same problems. Like, nobody likes their fucking bosses, right? Like, your boss is telling you it's the holiday season, you want to maybe take a little bit of time off.
I love my bosses. I work with 1.3 million working people. I love my bosses.
Okay, fair. That's different though. In most circumstances, you don't like your manager because your manager's like, they're not gonna.
Well, you look at your manager, you look at your boss, and you're like, they could never do my job.
Yeah.
And they're benefiting. Like I used to say this narrative all the time through the UPS negotiations, and UPS is a very tough company. We have 350,000 members, and they're tough. They're tough to work for. They got productivity standards. They got demands and service. No one likes their boss because you look at them, and you're like, you could never do my job, right? And I think that's part of what's going on as Amazon as well. You've got all these directives and policies put in place, unrealistic productivity demands, and people are getting hurt. People are getting injured, and people don't respect who they work for, right? That needs to change as far as Amazon's opinion. And you make a great point. Like, they want to streamline everything. They want to make technology important. They forget about the human element that goes along with it.
Yeah.
And that human element has proven itself, whether at UPS, DHL, or Amazon. Think about who produced or provided the goods and services to this country through the pandemic. It's the same Amazon employees right now that are fighting for their right to organize and work under a collective bargaining agreement. And you're right, mainstream media keeps trying to put the customers in the middle of this and blaming the Amazon workers, blaming the Teamsters union. And I think we just got to be consistent in our messaging and be concerned what that messaging is, but never lose sight of what our main goal is to organize those Amazon workers. Yeah,
I think, but ultimately, I think it's important to just, keep chipping away at it regardless of how difficult it may seem, because I don't think, there is definitely a lot more, there's a lot more positive sentiment towards unions right now than ever before, at least until, historically speaking, in the last couple of decades, I think the union approval ratings are at its highest level, right? People seem to be appreciative of union activity. Now, that might be because they're just kind of oblivious to it, they don't fully understand it, or because maybe the capital won this war already, so that they didn't really spend a lot of additional time routinely criticizing unions in general. Because you don't even hear that from Fox News for the past 2 decades, I would say. Since the Janus decision, at least, I haven't really heard anyone talk poorly against unions, left or right, I think, in media. But even if there was a time when people would get frustrated, like we kind of saw a little bit of that with the ILA, the longshoremen's, right? When they wanted to, when they were talking about potentially doing a strike, the media immediately started talking about how this is going to collapse the entire economy.
Well, don't forget what the media started doing as well. highlighting the fact it was going to collapse the economy, right?
Yeah.
And those big shippers are making tons of money.
Yeah.
But what was their pivot? Their pivot was attack personally the leadership
Yeah.
of the ILA.
Yeah, of course.
And they weren't focused on what these workers go through every single day, the risks versus the rewards. They were controlling the narrative of attacking the leadership, his salary. And look, I don't know what his salary is, whether that's accurate or not, but the main task at hand was to get these people the best contract.
Yeah.
And these shipping lines were making billions upon billions of dollars, and it was time to reward the workers. So, as far as that stuff goes, and the ILA and all that other stuff, that's just another example of, to your point, where the focus is not on the actual problem at hand is rewarding workers. It's about attacking people so that narrative is controlled toward corporations and global conglomerates.
Is very cynical. They want to present you as a villain because they can't talk about your message. They can't counter message against what you're saying because what you're saying makes sense. What you're saying makes sense in a way that every American can understand it, because just looking at it by pure numbers, there are far more people that work for a boss than there are bosses in this country, even though a lot of people a lot of people see themselves as like their own little bosses. In their minds, everybody's got a little, millionaire waiting to happen, right? And I think that informs the way that a lot of people think about the world, and maybe creates some unique problems, especially in America. But at the end of the day, you're working, and you're working for somebody else. So when you make that message known, when you go out on television and you talk about it in that way, that's going to be a terrifying prospect for a lot of corporations. So what do? They come after you. They attack you directly. They try to separate you, like I said, from your rank and file. And then they try to separate the union from the consumers, even though they're workers on both sides of that process. It's just how it works.
The good news is I can't be attacked for my wealth.
Yeah.
I can be attacked for my lack of.
I get attacked for I get attacked for my money all the time.
Look, here's the reality of it. In my family, in my neighborhood, who I hang around with, we don't inherit wills. We inherit bills.
Yeah.
So, they can attack my wealth all they want. They're going to see, wow, this kid needs a financial advisor.
They say that about me too. But speaking of wealth, by the way, I would, I told you already, I worked with the ALU before we started.
Right.
I raised $170,000 for them. Mm-hmm. And it was actually the union made shirt that I fundraised for. And any type of help you guys want for the Teamsters, for the ALU, like, I'm here for it. I try to use all of the influence and all the time I have to try to urge others to go organize their workplaces. I have a lot of fantastic community organizers and union organizers as well in my community in general. Some of which that started off kind of oblivious and maybe got a little bit radicalized during COVID or whatever, and then joined a union, joined the DSA and many other organizations. So I'm here to help.
Well, I appreciate that, and there's going to be a lot of call to arms moving forward, and I think to your point is outside of the sweat equity that we provide a lot of those organizations through our members and member-to-member interaction. The reality of it is we're going to need economic support. And, the Teamsters Union, thankfully, we're in a position where, we have $1 billion in assets, so we can sustain a fight with Amazon. But we also going to need support for nonprofit organizations while we're trying to organize when Amazon tries to fire employees and everything else. So it's great to hear that, and we truly embrace it. The one thing that's been a little troubling to me, dealing with a lot of these fights we've had, not just with Amazon, with a lot of corporations, is the political involvement of politicians, both federally, statewide, and locally. As you know, we settled a $30 billion contract with the United Postal Service, the richest contract ever. We protected against automation. Obviously, we're going to continue to fight over that. We've guaranteed jobs, and we guaranteed and we leveled the playing field within the postal delivery service industry. And a lot of times when we're in these battles, the threat to strike is sometimes more effective than the strike. And early on in our administration, we took over, we walked right into the rail workers, that are covered under the RLA.
Yeah.
And, the problem with what I have on both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, is that everybody wants to support workers. Everybody wants to be in the fight until it's time to take a campaign contribution, until it's time to go against corporate America. And, the same holds true in any and all fights with these politicians. I'll give you, for example, through UPS, which is a great example of an direct employer model, although they're tough to deal with, but they do the right thing because they're under a collective bargaining agreement. They have no other choice. But when we were fighting to get the best contract and created a contract campaign, we reached out to many all Democratic legislatures, Republican legislatures, to sign on for a letter of support. And you would be amazed at how many Democratic people didn't sign on to that letter of support. People that
I would not be amazed.
and like you look at Amazon, for instance, right? We've been fighting Amazon, and we've constantly sent letters out to these politicians. And, people that have pointed their finger in my face because we didn't endorse a candidate for the presidential election, like Chuck Schumer's of the world. Chuck Schumer pointed his finger in my face and said, we fixed your pensions. This is 2 weeks after I gave him a check for $550,000. He wouldn't sign on a support letter for the Amazon workers. And I questioned him on it. And he said, I never got the letter. I said, well, you can say that as much as you want, but the reality of it is we think that you didn't sign on to the letter because you're taking campaign contributions. And it's not just Amazon, it's big tech and everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And, then finally we found out that his daughter works for Amazon as a lobbyist. So it's like, come on, So what is your opinion on the political influence in a lot of these battles, and what positions should both Democrats and Republicans take?
I think that this is yet another part of the uphill battle that is like impossible to contend with. That, these guys have their children. They go to the best Ivy League schools. They get the best possible education. And they do that so that they can get a job at Amazon, so they can become a corporate lobbyist. Kamala Harris's brother-in-law is Tony West.
Uber.
He does Uber Legal. I mean, that is like Uber's entire business model is basically gutting what remains of labor protections for the regular employment structure and turning it into gig economy workers so that they have less power overall, like the DPS workers that we're talking about right now. 300,000 of them work for Amazon, right? Like they're in the last line of delivery. And they're under a gig structure, so they're, so that Amazon can go to the NLRB and say, oh, this is illegal that you're trying to unionize these people. It's a ridiculous structure. And it's been going on for far too long. And I think the only way to actually push back against it is through labor militancy,
right.
Really.
And the militancy is important, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, talk about, we gotta be militant. We want to be, a militant union. We have to show militancy. And that rhetoric is great, but we actually have to show action, right?
Yeah.
And you look at like the Kamala Harris of the world, right? You look at the Gavin Newsoms of the world. You look at everybody and there's a lot of social issues out there. And, we could sit here and talk for days about the social justice or social injustices that are out there. And these are the people that have claimed to be social justice warriors to a certain extent, right? But when they're embracing big tech, when they're embracing, automation, aren't they actually contradicting what their platform was as fighting social issues? I've been in the union 34 years. I'm a fourth generation Teamster, and I've single-handedly have witnessed in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and present that we have been fighting social issues all along. Wage inequality, race discrimination. But yet you have these politicians that are out there, saying we want a livable wage. We want to increase the minimum wage. We want to do all these programs. But yet they're embracing and getting in bed with, so to speak, the big tech who are trying to destroy jobs, who are not opening their doors to organize, the Googles of the world, the gig economy, as you spoke of. Why are people not talking about that in mainstream media?
Well, like I said, it's because they have a Google ad right after the 5-minute slot. So obviously they are financially incentivized to continue churning out the same propaganda over and over again. And this has been going on for for far too long at this point. But luckily, with independent media out there, you do have a real opportunity to try to get this message across. Just like, think about it this way: you've been around for quite some time. You've given interviews to the media over and over again. Have you ever talked to a person that has my ideological background? Like, have you ever, in mainstream news, have you ever talked to an anchor that automatically is like, yeah, no, I am unconditionally pro-labor. I understand that when there's a collective bargaining agreement happening, or when there's any sort of work stoppage happening, I know that my automatic position is never going to be, I'm blaming the union striking. I'm blaming the picketers because they're selfish and they want more money. That's what you hear from media, right? That's all they say. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if they're at Fox News, doesn't matter if they're MSNBC. That's what they say. They go, oh, you're being selfish. You already get $22. What do you want? The other workers out there get $7 an hour. How dare you ask for more? Someone like myself looks at that and says, you have a democratic process that you have to abide by. You have to take that back to your rank and file. They have to ratify this contract. You have to make sure that you get the best possible contract for your workers that actually ended up, voting for you to be this guy. On the other hand, you got the bosses. They are not beholden to anything. They're not beholden to anybody. They can unilaterally make a decision and say, oh, this contract that you brought to me is fair. We know that you don't want to destroy this company. That's ridiculous. No one wants. No one pays your fucking salary.
No one wants to destroy companies. That's a narrative, obviously, the mainstream media puts out there.
Fucking ridiculous. Yeah. Like, why would you want to destroy the company?
Again,
that's your salary. They're paying the salary of your workers. Like, is ridiculous, right? So, have you ever talked to a person in major media that understands the situation like that, even if they themselves are a part of a union, even if they do personally in their individual, in their secret opinions are like that? Have you ever seen someone demonstrate this understanding?
Absolutely not. Your point is well taken. The funny thing is, it's like, you do these interviews, and I do a lot of them, and it's one-sided, to your point.
Yeah.
And when you're out there trying to get your point across, people are interrupting you. People are not embracing difference of opinions. And I love the fact that mainstream media is suffering right now. I don't like to see people suffer or wish ill will on anything, but the way they have constructed a false narrative over the years, especially towards working people, I think they deserve what they get right now. And I think people like you, and hopefully people like me and other people, are going to be able to change the opinion, but more importantly, have discussions. And our discussions don't have to be controversial and or one opinion matters more than the other. It can be a collaboration of, hey, you know what? I'm having a discussion with you, and you know what? You opened my eyes to something I didn't realize because I allowed you to speak.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen on mainstream media.
I don't think they're interested in honesty. Is the point? No. Like, they have a goal.
It's ratings and money.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like, at least in the Wild West style, like world of podcasting right now and independent media right now, there's still an opportunity to talk to a genuine person, even if they're making tens of millions of dollars. Like Joe Rogan has a $200 million contract from Spotify, right?
Right.
But I don't think Joe Rogan is going to be as expressly anti-union or anti-labor as a person that's making significantly less than him, but works at like a CNN or an MSNBC, because like they have a directive.
They're compromised.
Yeah, they have to present your position as like bad automatically across the board, whereas he doesn't have to do that. And maybe he's a little bit more naive as well, in terms of understanding the dynamic between the bosses and the workers, right? And you could take advantage of that, especially because he's charitable. You could talk to him and describe it to him. This is something that I see, at least in my personal experience, communicating this kind of stuff to otherwise oblivious people who don't even recognize like how they should demand more, because it's their output, it's their work that is actually generating the value. There's no value without them.
I'll tell you, the one thing that's been encouraging to me, and I think most people, is this target audience, the 18 to 35-year-olds. They are demanding what they're worth.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging for me because, coming up through the union, I'm fourth generation, we were always brought up like, hey, you know what? Always believe in your union. Always take their word as gospel. And you follow that. You follow that to a point where, unions always, in my opinion, always did what's right by their members or try to. But now you have people 18 to 35 years old that are first generational trade unionists, and they're demanding their worth. They are telling you why they should be making a certain amount of money. They are telling you what they want in benefits. And I think that's great. I think that's going to be huge moving forward. Now, back to organizing for a minute, these big tech, these media opportunities, is there an opportunity to organize in big tech and media?
I think so, but I honestly don't know how you would even, I guess you'd have to salt them, but I don't know how, I don't know how you even broach that subject, because like, especially in the white collar side of things.
You mean the white collar crime syndicates known as corporate
yeah,
America?
Exactly. But in the white collar side of things, like the more divided you are, in my experience, like what I've seen, the harder it is to recognize how you're being screwed over by your bosses. And I think that the people that work in the high rises, like they don't see it in the same way that someone in a distribution facility is seeing it. And that's precisely the reason why Amazon has basically brought this down to a science where they tell you, we're going to give you a severance package 2 years in. There's a reason for that. It's not because they're punishing your body for 2 years. It's because if you stay there for 10 years, by the end of the third year, fourth year, you're probably going to be like, damn, me and this person, like we're united in this. Like, I'm familiar with these people.
And the divide and conquer mentality.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually kind of interesting because
you know that they have 150% turnover ratio.
Yeah, I mean that's by design.
Right.
They scientifically, they got a bunch of Ivy League students to get together and mathematically dial it down to figure out like how many years to instill some like class consciousness and people working on these.
They are creative little fuckers, aren't they?
Yeah, and very devious too, like surveillance technology.
Yeah.
The time off task stuff on Amazon facilities is like truly abhorrent. Is out of a movie basically. We're living in it. Now they're talking about possibly using these Boston Dynamics style dogs to like monitor the fucking workers and shit. It's like it's just, I don't understand how people don't look at that and go, this is messed up.
I'll say it's an invasion of privacy all around.
Yeah.
And the one thing, Amazon's going to be a battle, and I think we're going to be talking about this for a long time. And it's a battle we're going to have a call to arms. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're going to have partner up with people that may have difference of opinions on how we organize them. But more importantly, we've got to look at the future of what a new administration looks like for organized labor and working people moving forward. I've gotten criticized quite a bit because what I've been trying to do, even before this election, when we took over 1,004 days ago, was that, we realized that half of our membership are Democrats, half are Republicans, and we have some that are independents. And I've got a duty to represent each and every one of that demographic equivocally. And what we've been trying to do is find a way to collaborate with people that normally we wouldn't collaborate with, that may have difference of opinions on many of the issues that affect our members. But if we could find common ground on some of these issues, I just want to know what you think about, collaborating with Republicans or Democrats that may not see. Is that a path to try and get some resolution, get some support for working people moving forward?
So here's what I think. I think that every politician, Democrat, Republican, is first and foremost beholden to their corporate benefactors. There are some unique cases. There are some politicians who will make labor their top priority. Like you got, I don't know how you feel about him, but you have like Sherrod Brown, right? I don't agree with his worldview for the most part. There's a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, but I think ultimately he has a solid track record, right? And then on the other side, you have the likes of, I guess, Josh Hawley. Now, I need to see more from Josh Hawley, and not just like good media hits where he sits in front of corporate executives and like shreds them to pieces. But I need him to take legislative action.
So I can tell you this.
I brought him up specifically because I wanted to ask you about this.
Exactly. And I watched the podcast yesterday, and we get back to there's an outside view of Josh Hawley, and there's been, I think yesterday, Alex made a reference to this is politicking. Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't know Josh Hawley from a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And again, getting back to what we talked about early on is like, look, we wanted to get in there and work across the aisle. We went and met with Josh Hawley face to face. And a lot of people don't get to see this, so it's glad that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
And, he was right to work. Now she was pro national right to work. And we explained to him why national right to work is bad, why right to work is bad for workers. And immediately he said, well, I agree with you. I don't want to see this. And he changed his position right away on national right to work, which was a start, right? And then we started talking more and more and finding out how we can actually collaborate. And we had a strike in Missouri with Graybar, another big corporation that was taking advantage of the workers. We struck them. And he went out there and walked the picket line. And he made calls to the company. And collectively, we solved that strike in a day after he was there. So that's some of the action that needs to happen. But to your point, we want to see consistency in these people that want to be pro-worker Republicans. We want to be for the working party. There's no doubt, and I think I've been clear, and I'm not sure whether you agree with it or not, that, I'm a Democrat, lifelong Democrat. I come from Massachusetts, which has a long history. Mm-hmm. And the Democratic Party that I grew up with is not the same Democratic Party that it is today.
Absolutely.
And so my message has been clear. The Democrats lost this election because I think they lost focus on who they truly represent and who they should be representing, right? They fell in love with big tech. They fell in love with billionaires, and they've actually become what they've accused the Republicans over the last 10 or 15 years. Now, the Republicans, on the other hand, have said, hey, we want to be the working party. We want to be the party to support working people, right? They got a great opportunity to do that. And if they don't do it, people like me, people like you, have the ability to call them out and hold them accountable.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely very cynical, is what I mean. If I'm critical of the Democrats because my expectation is they're supposed to be pro-labor because historically they have been, mm-hmm. right? And I'm critical of that. I'm extra critical of the Republican Party because I know what they've done, right? I know historically what they've done. And I think one of the issues here is going to be with the NLRB General Counsel. Like, right. I don't think that I think that they're going to have a corporate lobbyist in that position, and it's going to matter a lot. Like, that battle is going to matter. I think for at least the next 4 years for the future of labor unions in this country. Like, do you put someone who's actually going to have the interests of workers there, or are you going to put someone who's beholden to the bosses? And I think that they're going to go with the boss guy. And I suspect that the likes of Josh Hawley, and there's not a lot of openly pro-labor Republicans out there. They do some lip service, like J.D. Vance talked about the PRO Act, right?
Well, the thing with the PRO Act, though, is, and I'm glad you brought that up, the PRO Act, as it's written right now, the Democrats, and I was there firsthand. We had a meeting with all Democratic senators early in the summer, and it was an informal meeting, and there was 3 other international general presidents there, and they wanted to ask. They were asking, why are our members voting Republican? And so, 3 out of the 4, and I was the 4th general president there. Before we went into this meeting, Senator Sanders was going to call for, putting the PRO Act on the floor. And I'm not for putting the PRO Act out to vote as a political pawn where we know it wasn't going to pass, get supported. It was going to be utilized so that the Democrats could point and say, see, the Republicans aren't for the PRO Act. Now, the discussions we've had, and very, very premature discussions, and we're the only organization that's doing it. I know that there was some other organizations like the AFL-CIO that was very involved in it. But what we're trying to do is create a narrative to come up and collaborate with a PRO Act that would actually be something that people could support on both sides. Now, don't forget, during the Obama administration, the Employee Free Choice Act was our biggest ask, right? Organized labor. And we had a Democratic president, Democratic House, Democratic Senate, right? And why couldn't we get that passed?
Yeah, because they did have the power at that time.
Right.
And they didn't want to do it. I mean, even in the PRO Act battle, though, like, you had Democrats within the Democratic Party's caucus that was saying that they weren't going to vote for it, like Mark Kelly. So I think that unions play a very important role in this part of the process. Like, we're getting into the boring, like, legislative action side of things, but I think it is very consequential, very important. And I think the union side of this is something that you have aside from a war chest that other, like, corporate lobbyists also have, which is significantly larger than what you guys have, obviously, is numbers. Not only do you have numbers, but you're everywhere. So I think that you brought up Obama. Obama had Organizing for America. I think there was like 10 million active participants there. What did Obama do after he won the election? After he took control of the Democratic Party, he put that under the DNC and he completely shut that down. Originally, the way that was supposed to work was that was a outside of the political space organizing, like, a movement where he could go and bully congresspersons and, like, whip votes without having to rely on, like, whoever the Senate whip was or whoever the speaker was in the House, right? He didn't do that. He didn't use that. But I think the union still can do that, where you could just be like, listen, this is something that we want. If you're not gonna participate in this, if you're not gonna vote for it, we're just gonna go to your town hall or we're gonna yell at you.
Well, that's the other thing too. I mean, these politicians, again, they shouldn't be beholden to corporate America.
Yeah.
They should be beholden.
They are.
But 100%.
Yeah.
This meeting I was talking about, you know, I laid it out. I'm like, our members aren't voting for you, and I'm just speaking for the Teamsters, is because you're taking contributions from corporations and big tech that are trying to destroy Teamster jobs, union jobs.
Yeah.
That's why I go, every one of you in this room has taken money from big tech or corporations that we fight every day. And our members aren't stupid. Our members are very sophisticated. So that's the reason why. When are you going to change your behavior?
Yeah. I think corporate lobbying plays a big role in this for sure, because it ends up. I mean, they write the legislation.
Imagine if you had to put corporate lobbyists on a polygraph. You made that a mandate.
That'd be great.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I think they should.
That could be a podcast in itself.
I like that, but I want to do much worse things than that, I think. I won't say.
Yeah, but you can say it. See, being the general president of Teamsters, if I even think it, they want to indict me over it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, of course.
I'm too pretty for prison. You probably, I know, you've probably been thinking that the whole time, right?
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is, I think they should abolish it in its entirety. But as it stands right now, if you want to look at it, like, I feel like the way that this influencing structure works in Congress, you at least still have an entry point. You can get into these meetings. Obviously, you should be able to, because you represent millions of people.
Well, think about this, though, right? And you think about what's going on a smaller scale with this Amazon strike, and potentially we're going to have a strike with UPS. We control and are influential in almost every mode of transportation in this country. Trucking, airlines, maritime, rail, right? So we should be, and we are going to demand, and we will be in any and all of these discussions. My problem is these people that are supposed to be serving their constituency, who are union members, who are middle-class America, they need to be reminded of who they actually serve. And I think the Democratic Party in this situation in the last 4 years has lost sight of who they should be servicing.
I think it's longer than the last 4 years.
Well, I'm just
but you're right.
What's been going on. And the Republicans, who have, been a poster child for corporate America and people, profits over people, are claiming that they want to be the representative. So I know there's a lot of skepticism and everything else, and that skepticism is well warranted. But wouldn't you agree that we should be having these bipartisan discussions and opinions to try and change people's attitudes. If we just draw a line in the sand, we're not going to get anything done for America and, more importantly, workers in this country.
Look, I always tell people, I don't give a shit what your politics is, as long as, like, when you're talking about unionizing, when you're talking about participating in collective bargaining, participating in work stoppages, like, it doesn't matter what your politics are, because I don't think labor unions have anything to do with the left-right dynamic. It's just about what's fair, right? You go to work every day and you generate value for your bosses. I think it's perfectly just for you to say, we need some of that. We need some of that back. You don't get to turn billions of dollars of profit year over year with our work without giving us anything in return.
Well, you generate tremendous wealth for these corporations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't really care about what people's individual political opinions are, and I don't even care if there's like you and I have disagreements. I think in terms of the Republican Party, I don't think that they're honest across the board. I don't think the Democrats.
I don't think any of them are honest.
Yeah, I don't think the Democrats.
Again,
are
we get back to diabetes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's a contentious relationship that mainstream media has with labor in general. But regardless of that, if you have a picket line somewhere, I'm going to support that. If there's any sort of labor action, I'm going to support it unconditionally, because I understand that the goals that those people have are closer to mine in terms of demanding more of the value that they're generating.
Well, I think what's great about you and your declaration to support working people is you stated earlier on that you didn't grow up like I grew up. You didn't grow up in a neighborhood. You didn't grow up, generational blue collar America, right? And so it's actually very encouraging for people that, like yourself, that know right from wrong, regardless of the means that you came from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of people can understand that. Not every single person is immediately going into like Mark Wayne Mullen. Their father.
Hey, let's pull out Mark Wayne Mullen here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Not every single person is like Mark Wayne Mullen.
But I will tell you about this after.
Yeah. I don't like this guy. I think you're probably much nicer to him now than I would be.
Here, the last time, him and I kind of had a back and forth. Appreciate your demeanor today. It's quite different. But after you left here, you got pretty excited about the kid. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on. No, stop it.
Is that your solution or Republican?
No, sit down. Sit down. You're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Okay.
Sit down.
All right, so you know what's funny? You know what's funny about this? After Senator Sanders popped the nitroglycerin pill under his tongue, it was funny because this was a second round of, and I never knew who Mark Wayne Mullen was. I didn't know anything about him. The first Senate hearing that I testify in front of, he attacks me. And I'm like, I go right into mode, like neighborhood where I grew up mode. I'm like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid of you. And we got into it. We get into it real good. I get off. My mother calls me and she's like, I just saw you on TV. And my mother is awesome. My mother's like a beast. I go, oh yeah, what'd you think? She goes, oh great, you just got us all fucking audited. That's nice, right? So after that, there's again mainstream media perpetuating this controversy over and over. So of course we're responding, he's responding, whatever. We go into a second hearing. Again, it blows up. And it was funny because, I didn't really care. I don't sweat anybody. And we got into that controversy. Now stand your butt up. Like, all right, okay, if we're gonna throw down, I'm not taking my ring off. I'm gonna use my ring to dent you real hard, right? and I'm looking at him, and then I'm having fun with it. But my point on the serious note is, you made a good point. Like, so we were going back and forth, and you know, I made a claim. I'm like, look, you're one of 100 of the most powerful people in this country. Act accordingly.
Yeah.
And then I just step back and I'm like, look, I'm a pretty influential person representing one of the best organizations in the world. You know, I can act a little bit better and a little more professional as well. And then this kind of ceasefire we had on one another, we sat down, we met, and we had a direct conversation. And I said, I don't agree with some of the stuff that you agree on. He goes, I don't agree with you. I go, that's great. I said, do you have a problem working with us on the stuff that we can agree with? He says, absolutely not. I would love to do that. Now, you know, we haven't collaborated a lot, and I'm not certain what's going to happen moving forward.
Yeah.
But I am having conversations.
Yeah.
Look, my best friend in my whole life grew up in my neighborhood. I had conflict with him for the first 2 or 3 years, from 4 years old till 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And then we became best friends, right? I'm not suggesting that's going to happen. But my point to all this is we can throw barbs at each other. We can criticize each other for our views. But at the end of the day, I want to look for that opportunity to try and work together on things that are important for our members and also the American worker. And, you know, if I'm going to get criticized for doing that and it doesn't work, I'm not married to any certain strategy. That's the problem with today. People can't get something done and they automatically give up. And I was taught you keep working that problem until you get the resolution you want.
The reason why I brought him up, not because of this.
Do you think he can take me?
But no, I mean, I don't know. You're pretty. Do you roll? Do you do Brazilian jiu-jitsu or anything like that?
Oh man, I do Irish karate. I just put my head down and go.
I mean, you're pretty big. I mean, you work out, right?
I do. Yeah, I work out a little bit. You work out too.
I do, yeah. But I mean, I think he's a trained fighter. I don't know how good he is, so maybe, but you know, he's probably weak now.
No, I think he's a pretty strong. I've seen him. He's pretty, you know, he's rugged. And one of my buddies says to me, "You're really going to fight that guy?" And I'm like, I don't think it's ever going to come down. He goes, "He's got fucking cauliflower ears."
Yeah.
And I go, and I said, "Yeah, well, you know what? Worst case scenario, he can't fight an Escalade at 80 miles an hour in a crosswalk."
Yeah.
Oh shit, what happened?
Yeah.
No, but listen, look, I'll fight with anybody. I'll argue and debate with anybody. But at the end of the day, look, it comes down to roll our sleeves out, put our differences aside, and figure out how we can actually collaborate to make some change.
Yeah. But once again, the reason why I brought him up is because he is an Oklahoma senator, right? I believe he's from Oklahoma. He took over his father's business. So from the jump, his perspective immediately was aligned with bosses. He is not, he doesn't have a similar experience to like the hundreds of millions of Americans who don't immediately take ownership over their father's jet ski dealership or whatever, right? Most people work in the real world. And that, I think, is a very radicalizing moment for every single person. And in that, in the anger and resentment that they experience in their workplace, where as an adult, another adult tells you, like, you can't do that, you can't do this. And in many instances, the things that you're demanding are pretty fair, where you're like, well, okay, my mother is sick. Can I take some time off today? And they're like, no, you can't. Okay, well, that's a radicalizing moment for you, right? In that anger and confusion, I think a lot of people start focusing on these distractions. And I think the Republicans and the Democrats both take advantage of those distractions, where they start talking about
personal issues.
They start talking about personal issues. They start talking about, like, oh, it's the migrants that are a problem. It's trans people that are a problem. And it's like, the way I see it is that those people are workers too. Like, they are closer to you in their attitude and the things that they want and the things that they demand from their workplaces than anybody else, than a card-carrying union member. They have the exact same principles. They have the exact same interests, rather, not the same principles, but the same interests. And I think all of this division is unnecessary in that regard, because the Democrats would be like, we're pro this, we're pro that, but they don't do shit at the end of the day. Like,
well, Senator Kane from Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay. My first help committee meeting, and we can talk about Mullen. We can talk about all of them. You know, being born on third base and actually thinking they hit a triple to get there.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of Democrats like that as well. And Senator Kane, we're testifying about how bad Amazon is, how bad they treat their workers, how they focus on distressed communities, right? And Senator Kane says, now he's a Democrat, says, I have no problem with Amazon. They put 15,000 jobs in my area. I'm like, yeah, but the way they treat people, the way they focus and they prey on distressed communities, you don't have a problem with that? Absolutely not. So, when you get an attitude that, it's like a Stockholm syndrome, they fall in love with their captor, regardless of how bad that captor is. That's the problem that exists as well, is these people got to realize their constituencies are working for corporate America, corporate bullies. So, we've got to change that mentality. But again, circling back, we have to have these conversations, and we have to have true testimonials from people that are experiencing this bad behavior, that are taking, the bullets for these corporations where they're making billions upon billions of dollars. So I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I think if people like yourself, myself, and other people that voices can be heard, that we got a great opportunity to change the narrative in this country. And I'm excited about it. And look, if people who are in power right now don't do the right thing, we've got years upon years to build momentum, build a bottom-up organization where we can actually make change. Now, let me ask you something. You're 33 years old, right?
Yeah.
You're one of the most influential podcasters, social media influencers. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
This is a hard question to answer, but a lot of people always ask me like, oh, do you want to go into traditional media or whatever? And I've always maintained the position that like, no, I want to have the traditional media audience doing exactly what I'm doing. So where I see myself in the next 10 years is doing exactly what I've been doing and offering help where help is necessary and giving a voice to people that otherwise are not looked at by mainstream sources, and doing that in a way where I can continue to grow and continue to capture the attention of more and more people in a charitable way, and maybe even change their minds on certain things. But especially when it comes to labor unions, I think that's where I'm the most impactful, and that's where I think we have any sort of power to fight back against very powerful entities, because you could shut the shit down. And I think that's very important for people to understand.
Good. When I stop commerce in this country, just make certain you donate to my canteen when they put me behind the house of many doors. But listen, I think moving forward, we've got great opportunities here. I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk to you today. Is there anything you want to plug or promote?
You guys can find me at twitch.tv/HasanAbi. I'm live every day from 11 a.m. Pacific to 8 p.m. Pacific time, usually 7 days a week. I talk about politics, I play video games, I do a bunch of stuff. I do like fun collaborations as well, because you gotta do some entertainment as well on the side. Some broccoli and also steak. You gotta do both. So that's it. And thank you so much for having me. Like I said, anytime you guys need any support, I'm there. I love the Teamsters mentality. I went to the picket for the Writers Guild, and that in and of itself was impactful. But Teamsters that run those trailers would refuse to pass the picket line if there was at least 2 or 3 people at any of the assembly points, any of the entry points. And I think that's solidarity that's baked in. It's something that Teamsters understand, and I've always really appreciated, always really valued that role that Teamsters play, because again, it's one of the most significant aspects of logistics in this country. And when you're able to demonstrate a larger presence through that solidarity, I think you do end up forcing bosses to concede on many things, and that's important. That's necessary.
Let's talk about Luigi.
All right. Luigi Mangione. Do you see the perp walk that they did yesterday with Eric Adams? They had him looking like Lex Luthor. They were making it seem like he was they were making it seem like he had a superpower. He was going to fly away or something. Like they had all the FBI guys on there. Why do you think they're so scared?
Well, I mean, they're scared because everything I do in my life, right, professional life, when negotiating contracts or anything, comes down to the biggest priority is health insurance.
Yeah.
And it's focused around the cost of health insurance. It's focused around the hitting costs. And our members, we fight on behalf of our members all the time to make sure that they've got the best health care at the least amount of cost. But that's not the norm in the world. There's people out there that, you know, you look at CEOs of not just insurance companies, but all these companies making millions upon millions of dollars, in some cases billions upon billions of dollars, and the people they're serving are suffering the most. Now, we don't condone anybody getting murdered.
Of course.
We don't condone assassinations. You know, what we tolerate, unfortunately, is the exploitation of the American person who is falling victim to outrageous insurance crisis. And this is not acceptable, murdering someone in the street, but it's a reality of how people are feeling throughout this country.
Yeah.
They may not act out, and hopefully they will not act out like Luigi did, but we can't make this guy a folk hero either.
I think whether you and I disagree with making him a folk hero, it seems like people are still there. And why are they there? Well, you said we don't condone murder, and you're right. The problem is we do actually completely normalize murder as long as it's done at the behest of the profit margin. Because like these guys, these CEOs, people that deny claims professionally, right? They are responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans every year. And to the individual American, right? Normally, we're very self-interested. We're hyper individual.
Yeah, we don't get involved. We don't get involved unless the problem affects us directly.
Yeah, but insurance, for-profit healthcare is so devastating that it has touched the lives of virtually every single American, and they see it as murder. They see it as, okay, we paid these high premiums, and all of a sudden the insurance started denying my grandmother's chemotherapy, and now she has to die. That's murder. The average American sees that in the exact same way that all these CEOs and all these corporate executives see what Luigi Mangione did.
Well, we're definitely not in disagreement on that. I mean, we deal with it every single day. And it's not just the healthcare insurance. I'll give you, for instance, homeowners insurance.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough because I had a union job at 18 years old to save for 2 years, and I bought a multi-family home just outside of a city in Boston. And I've had an insurance policy with this same local insurance broker who deals with the bigger safety insurance and all the likes of those, and never filed a homeowner's claim. Recently, I had a problem with my roof, and it wasn't a major problem. I had a contractor come out and say, what's it going to take to fix it? $5,000. But, you know, a tree fell on it. Make sure you put it through your homeowners. When I called my local broker, they said, it's not worth putting this through your homeowners. I said, why? My deductible is what it is. And they said, no, they'll drop you. I said, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Here I am. I've been paying into your insurance company for 32, 33 years, never filed a claim. And insurance is insurance. It's you're paying for something. In the event that something happens, you're covered. And you're going to drop me after 32, 33 years?
Yeah.
It's a disgrace.
No, it's called theft. They just stole your money.
Right.
There's no other sector.
Can I call the insurance cops?
Yeah, exactly. There's no other sector where they're just like, we are going to give you, let's say you go to McDonald's, right? You're like, here's my money. Give me a Big Mac. And they're like, no, thank you for the money. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
You just brought up McDonald's, all right?
Yeah.
And this whole Luigi thing.
Yeah.
The government puts out a reward.
Yeah.
Right?
60,000 total.
Right. And the person who works at McDonald's, probably living day to day,
yeah,
who actually did what was asked of them, now the government's trying to chisel them out of that full reward.
That's how it always works.
So what is the incentive for people like that worker at McDonald's who actually does the right thing because, you know, he sees that there's a reward or she sees a reward, and the government's chiseling them? I mean, come on. Do they need a union?
They definitely do. But maybe if they did have a union and that person wasn't so worried about the $50,000 because they were getting significantly better pay, they might not have even snitched.
So you know what I love about the whole thing?
Yeah.
Right? I love about the whole thing. Look, snitching is unacceptable from where I'm
Yeah.
from, right? But it's funny because McDonald's is taking a tremendous amount of heat
Yeah.
for this person.
Yeah,
turning
they're
them in.
review
And
bombing
then,
it.
and so you see on social media, it was hilarious. Taco Bell has an ad and says, "We don't snitch."
Yeah.
Home run, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I mean, but it's true. It's like that person, even if they didn't have their claim denied, I guess the $50,000 reward that they are never going to get now. Let's say they got it. Next time they don't have insurance. Next time they have a
Right.
medical problem, they're going to use that $50,000 immediately on that. That's at the heart of the problem to begin with.
No.
Like Luigi Mangione should not exist, right? In a normal functioning society, there is no guy who's like, I am so angry that I'm going to go and kill someone in broad daylight. Like that is the final act of desperation, right? So that's why I try to advocate for fixing these clearly broken systems, so that people aren't experiencing
Well, people aren't
that
going to act.
level of
Out.
anger.
People aren't going to act on their anger. I get it. Now, speaking of crazy shit, you're from New Jersey.
Yeah,
What's up with these drones, man?
I think, ironically enough, I think they're working on it to displace your guys for the most part. I think that there's Amazon and Walmart are working on drone delivery technology. There's other crazier companies that are working on like possible autonomous transport, like these helicopters. I'm like, helicopters are dangerous enough. Now you don't want to even have a helicopter pilot in there. I'm not getting in that shit.
Right.
But I think that originally it was probably like a defense contractor that was like working on some technology, right? And then people saw it and then they freaked out.
So what do you think would happen if your neighbor in your neighborhood you grew up with saw a drone
Yeah.
and was a license to carry
Yeah.
the bearer of arms and he shot that drone out of the sky? What do you think would happen to them?
I mean, I think that they would probably
Would find
get
out who's
punished.
behind them, number one.
Yeah, but they probably get punished for it, because I don't think you can just I don't think you just like shoot drones like that. There was a guy in Florida that even got in trouble for doing that, if I'm not mistaken. But I do worry a little bit because people apparently in Staten Island are like beaming lasers in commercial.
And I'm getting on a
commercial
plane
flights.
at midnight tonight, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I mean, not to freak you out, but like, there's so much. I think there's a lot going on up there, and when you don't look up it normally, and you're not like skeptical of it, you just kind of take it for granted. But the moment that you look up and you're expecting to see something, and you do actually see shit, stars, planes, helicopters, drones, you start freaking out. And I think that's kind of what happened, where there was this like mass panic over relatively innocuous drone activity. It's going to get more frequent. I think we'll just normalize it, like the existence of drones in general. I think that's like the next step in our delivery, probably.
All right, so rapid fire. What is a day in the life of Hasan Piker like?
I wake up 6 a.m., start reading, start writing, start listening to my dailies, go work out, take my dog out to the park, make sure she works out as well. Come back, start streaming, take a shower, start streaming 11 a.m. Pacific all the way to 8 p.m. Pacific every single day. Once I'm done, my brain is fried. That's like 8-9 hours of just talking nonstop. I watch a little bit of TV and I go to sleep, and then rinse and repeat every day.
Favorite TV show right now?
Right
Streaming
now,
series.
well, right now I watch anime, so I don't think you're gonna know.
Probably not.
Yeah, I'm watching a show.
But
called,
I'm gonna learn.
Yeah, I'm watching a show called Delicious in Dungeon Meshi on Netflix. It's where they go to a dungeon and they eat the monsters.
So let me ask: are you under the influence of anything when you're watching these shows?
No,
All
I
right,
don't.
good.
I don't do that anymore. I used to. I used to smoke. I used to eat legal shiitake mushrooms and stuff. I don't do anything anymore. I don't even drink.
I've never done drugs in my life because I probably would have loved them.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't. That's why I stayed away from
Yeah.
harder substances. if you know what I mean.
So you were a soft recreational youth.
Yeah, I was, but
You're
even
rehabilitated now and all better.
yeah, well, it wasn't even like the brain fog or whatever. I'm a very productive person. I didn't like that it was making me unproductive, but also more importantly, I was getting fat. I couldn't stop eating because when you smoke weed, it's just everything tastes so good. So I was just
Even the remote control that you think
Yeah.
you swallowed with the gummies.
yeah, I was eating everything in sight. So I had to stop it.
Well, that's good. Well, we're unionizing the cannabis industry as well, so
Hell yeah.
it's going to be fun. But again, thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.